Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, friends, colleagues, and any listeners who might be tuning in for the first time. Today's guest is somebody who's already appeared on one of the podcasts, and he's come back again with a different objective. Those who watched him the first time might not have recognised him this time with his newfound hairsuit look, with his man beard, obviously a reflection of his time in lockdown. The person I'm talking about is Arpad Szakal, and Arpad is coming on today with a message of support, and as a member of the Royal Aeronautical Society that was established way back in 1866. And Arpad, welcome, lovely to have you back on again. And can you please just explain a little bit about the Royal Aeronautical Society and what it is that you actually want to cover today?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the opportunity to come back and speak to you again. So, a bit of background on myself, just for those who have missed our first conversation. I'm a lawyer by background. I specialize in aviation-related matters, predominantly on the insurance and regulatory side of things. And sort of 6 or 7 years ago, I made a move from law to the field of executive search and leadership assessment space, and have been working in this field ever since. What we are doing with the Royal Aeronautical Society is twofold. One, create a positive message to people, especially young professionals who are trying to enter the industry, really just making sure that they are not discouraged from entering it. And also, we would like to help mid-career or senior level professionals, leaders, evaluate their careers and help them reinvent themselves. So we are doing 2 webinars. One of them took place on the 6th of May, which was predominantly for young professionals entering the industry, providing them with some practical tips. And the other one, which is scheduled to be on the 20th of May, Chris, which will be predominantly for seasoned executives, providing them with some advice on how to cope with any layoffs or any furloughs that are happening across the industry, whether it's airports, airlines, or other stakeholders, and really just again project a positive sort of outlook for the future, which is quite difficult to find at the moment, I think.
Indeed, right. So, thank you for that. Now, one word that you use there, which is probably a word that people have stopped using much at the moment, is positive. So I commented on your beard and how long you've been in. So you've decided to have a little self-challenge and experiment with a new look. But for lots of people, it's been very, very difficult. And the things that I'm seeing is no matter what piece of news or whether it's genuine, whether it's people who are trying to come across sensible and making sense, it's very difficult for people to be positive. And I think we're all everywhere. We're at a point now where we need to start being positive about what the new normal is going to look like. It's going to happen. This is one of the strangest and probably the most globally impacting of crisis that's ever been experienced in any of the generations that are living at the moment. So it's not going to be something that's going to be forgotten, and there'll be an awful lot of investigation, probing, review, etc. However, the most important thing, irrespective of all the terrible things that have happened, and I just need to emphasize, I'm not trying to make light on what has happened, because the death toll is terrible, and everybody's been affected. It's an awful thing, a really, really awful thing, and it's something that should never be forgotten, and we must never let it happen again. However, with that in mind, the best way of moving forward and healing is to start being positive about things that may and must happen. So positive, very, very important. And the mindset. Now, before we start, one of the things you also mentioned about your career change from the legal side onto the more aeronautical side, and it must have been after a bad night that you decided to make that change. I'm only joking. Only joking. Okay. This career is fantastic. So the word that I'm going to just keep focusing on in a positive way is cargo. Okay. So now everybody in the world is appreciating how important cargo is to their day-to-day life that they took for granted. So along with all of the heroes, the health heroes, then the frontline workers, the cargo operators, and people who are unloading the aircraft, loading the aircraft, fueling the aircraft, all the things that operate and go around an aircraft on or off the ground, they are to be recognised and respected a lot more than they ever were. So one of the most important positive things you can do as an individual is firstly appreciate your own value, and then try and link some values or purpose of the company or the organization or the department that you're working in, so that you can appreciate how that value links to a bigger value, so that you actually start to appreciate what you're doing with the part of your life that very few of us have got choice. We have to work to live. If you can do that, it makes things a lot better.
Yeah, just one thing to add, Chris, what you said earlier. I think this crisis has really showcased aviation's and the aerospace industry's role in things like returning citizens, transporting life-saving cargo to remote communities. I think it illustrates well really the value of the air service. So I think from that perspective, the industry has received some really good publicity. I think that's certainly a positive. And also going forward, I think when it comes to change management, innovation, new technologies, I think the industry will continue to lead the way and serve as an example to other industries when it comes to best practices, risk and crisis response. I think you would agree.
Yeah, 100%. And the one thing about this industry, our industry, is because it's so focused on safety and security, we've had such regulatory change on an often basis that we're used to having these new changes and adapting and being more agile. So it will come, but it will come in many different forms. And already, and for those who watch this, today was the day that, or it's the day after Boris made his announcement of the changes from stay home, protect the NHS and save lives, to stay alert, control the virus and save lives.
Yeah.
And already there's huge negativity and mocking of the fact that it's not clear enough, etc. So we'll come to that a little bit later. So now the main focus of our discussion is you people who think or want to know should they come into the industry and what should they do, and those of the younger generation that are already in, and should they stay and will they stay and can they stay, and anybody who's feeling at a crossroads. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. I think those are the...
Right. So now to start with, I can ask you a question or you can ask me a question and we can get going. So the most important thing now is what's actually happening in the industry with the workforce. Okay. So my personal and simplified version is if a region or a country or a group of countries are in lockdown, it means what it says on the can. You can't go out, you can't travel. So that has a huge devastating effect on passenger and passenger market, the travel, the tourism, leisure, etc. So everybody has seen that. So it's very, very obvious. So the fears that are in people's minds who are already in the industry is, will it be the same when it comes back?
Not sure what the answer is to that, but Chris, IATA, the International Air Transport Association, predicts that the worldwide job losses could reach 25 million in the industry. Around 11 million of those will be in the Asia Pacific area. But you just have to look at what's happening in Europe. I mean, not even the biggest airlines like the British Airways and the Lufthansas are sure to be bailed out. So I think Ryanair, Lufthansa, British Airways, SAS and Air France could shed together as many as 32,000 jobs among them as they shrink their businesses. The same is happening in the Asia Pacific region. Well, Singapore Airlines down with 97%, or something like that. Cathay Pacific has been cutting people in the US as well, left, right, and center, across all lines of their business. But it's not only the airlines and the airports, it's the manufacturers, of course. It's they are having to adjust quite a lot to reduced demand, and the likes of Rolls-Royce, Airbus, GE Aviation, they are planning some really big cuts. So everyone is hoping that hiring freezes, part-time working, early retirement might soften this blow. But I think there is not an awful lot of cause for optimism at this stage. Basically. Even Heathrow Airport reported quite a number. I think it's like 350 million loss for the first quarter of this year. So,
okay, so that's the Grim Reaper update. All right, so I appreciate that, because that puts things straight into perspective very quickly. So anybody sitting on an aircraft or used to sit on an aircraft, when you looked out the window, there's certain things that take your eye. But what most people, or probably everybody, doesn't realise is if you were to draw circles around that aircraft and they got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, they're actually spheres of reliance or interface of other businesses and different activities that all associate with that aircraft taking off and landing. And it's huge. We covered from catering, from hotels, from transportation, from shops on the way into the airport, from retail at an airport. Everything is associated with that aircraft landing and taking off. Now, facts. Carriers, as well as any businesses, will never waste a crisis. So all of the legacy waste, all of the legacy issues that they needed to clear up, they will take that. And I'm making sure I don't use the word advantage, but they will do that because it's something that has to be done for business. So that's a tough task, but that's what lots of people are doing. So all of the aircraft that are being retired early, all of the heavy fuel consumption equipment, that's all being changed. Now that will have a knock-on effect on so many areas. So that's a fact. Now there's no softening that's going to make that good for everybody. So the main thing now is, how do the people that are affected, how do they now refocus or re-energize or re-engage? And that's basically what we're trying to do. And there is always light at the end of every tunnel, no matter how dark it seems when you first go in. And that's what we've got to focus on. Do you agree?
Exactly. I think I couldn't agree more, because although hiring will slow, companies will go through restructuring processes. I think it's really important to realize that what you do during this downturn and how you spend your time, if you are furloughed or if you have been laid off, will really determine your future success. I think that's what the main message would be. I think it's
exactly. Now let me ask you something, because this is, and again, I'm just trying to put it as simply as possible with no disrespect to anybody or no lack of care or consideration. But we're in a situation, everybody's affected, everybody's going to have to go through tough times. Nobody knows the correct way out because everybody's doing things differently. But what they all know is that we're going to be under pressure with this virus for at least 9 to 18 months, maybe 2 years. Everybody's pretty sure that there is going to be pullbacks, there is going to be rebounds, because the economy has to start to go in its best way possible without risking too many lives. So in very simple terms, we've got a 2-year period. Then what normally happens with the human race is there'll be a vaccine and everybody will think, that's it, I can go out, do what I want, no problems, bang, 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 and then there'll be another sudden surge. So if you keep it as simple as that, so there's going to be constant pressures for the next 2 years, and then there's going to be some sort of a real differential again. So there'll be a boom to what the new normal was, but there'll still be lessons learned, which there has to be. So if you take that into account, and like I said to you at the beginning, during the lockdown, you've changed your image.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to be important is, what do people do with this period of time that's got all these challenges and all these knockbacks or all these extra pressures, that's the most important thing as to what people do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now,
and it's important to realize that it's not the technical skills or the hard skills that will put you into a better position when it comes to, again, hiring and really getting hired again. But those softer skills, Chris, I think things like composure, your ability to really put the crisis on one side and really appear to be calm and collected when you're talking to organizations who have been really focusing on survival rather than painting a brighter vision for the future. I think they will really require people who can learn from setbacks and difficult times, but really can learn from those situations and use that practical wisdom and get these companies from a bad stage to a brighter, more positive.
Yeah, totally agree. And again, neither of us are experts from the medical side nor the mental health side or anything. We're just two people, different generations. Okay, so you're young enough to be my son.
Yeah.
Just talking about the same particular issue. Now you used the terms furloughed and laid off. Okay,
yeah.
So huge impact on people. It's a little bit softer, obviously, with the furlough concept. Now, for me, furlough and laid off. Okay, however you package it or paint it or try and colour it, it gives people a bad feeling.
Yeah.
It gives people a bad feeling. So, firstly, how should they feel about that bad feeling?
I think it's first, let's define what a furlough is, because this word is not something that has been known or used here in the UK. This is a very US centric sort of word. So a furlough is an alternative to a layoff. Basically, it's furloughs can take many different forms, but the end result is the same, Chris. It's the worker remains employed by their employers, but they're paid less, or they're not paid at all, saving the company money. Basically, it can happen in many industries, but it happens in the airline or hospitality sectors very often, particularly in the US. Both public and private companies can do it. It's a quick and effective way for organizations to cut costs when necessary. And another thing to add is that furloughs are temporary and they are used to retain staff, so that hopefully in the next sort of few weeks and months, when things pick up, they can get back to their organizations basically and then continue where they left it off. So people who have been furloughed, they really view this as an excellent opportunity to really just broaden their skill sets, really go out there, look at various online courses. I mean, IATA has been really generous because they put a lot of their courses out there for free. It's on the IATA website, on their training website. It's anyone who would like to use this time to get better, basically. So I can only recommend really checking it out because it's very generous of them. It's normally quite expensive to really sign up for those courses and do them. And it's just a really good way to spend time cleverly, smartly.
It is. Now we'll come to that in a little bit of time, because there's too much training out there, and it's causing too much confusion. Okay, yeah. And there's good training and there's bad training, and there's training just to fill up time, and companies who are desperate to get some revenues, they're pumping things out all over the place. So the choice is also causing a problem. Now, a very simple way of looking at furlough and laid off is the inevitable is a lot of people are going to be laid off. If you're on furlough, the chances are it's a short period of time before you may or may not be laid off as well. Okay?
Exactly.
So very, very difficult for people. Full sympathy for anybody that's in that sort of situation, especially with families, with mortgages, with bills, etc. So we can't cover the political ownership of the problem and the political support of the particular issue. But for anybody who's in that situation, if we break it down to its simplest form, and it's something that every morning you wake up,
yeah,
you've got those same problems. Every night you go to bed, you've got those same worries. Okay, and when you look at your wives, your husbands, your children, people that you rely on, it either magnifies it more or less. When you look at your surroundings, so if there's lots of you in an accommodation, whether it's a big family, etc., it puts more pressures on. We've heard about children with laptops, with access to technology, etc. So all of those things, nobody can judge who's in what stage of that particular, shall we say, meltdown pressures. Okay, so it's very difficult. So all we're doing, I'm just very cautious that we're not trying to minimize people's problems or whatever. What we're trying to do is we're trying to say is that the aviation industry is a great one to be in and is a great one to come into for all the futures, irrespective as to what size or what the new normal will be. However, to do so, there are things that you can do which will help you. And some of those things are, like you said, keep yourself well informed and trained. So if you're already at certain stages of specialization, focus on the training that accentuates those skills and maintains that service of that particular qualification. So be focused on that. Always look at anything to do with safety and security, and especially now occupational health and safety, with emphasis on hygiene, because those areas of specialization are going to be needed, ever more important as we move forward.
I can completely second that, Chris. It's basically anything to do with health and safety related roles, positions. I mean, they will be front and center going forward, and it doesn't really matter where in the supply chain, in the aerospace supply chain you want to work in, whether it's an airline, airport, ground handling, cargo. I think that's the area I'm glad you've mentioned, because that's where growth is going to be, and that's where the requirements will be.
Yeah, and that's also where there's going to be a higher degree of respect and focus when the businesses start to come back again, because C-suite management and boards and shareholders, they're going to be looking at sustainability, continuity and agility of the businesses with a little less determined focus just on bottom line and margins. So there's going to be a little bit of a compensatory safety net based on the fact that they want their organizations to have continuity, capability, etc. So another area is with risk. If you start to focus on risk, how to do a risk assessment, why are risk assessments important? Emergency response planning. All of the areas that everybody would identify if they look back with 2020 hindsight that weren't really focused on as much as they should have been in the first place. So if
digital transformation will be front and center as well, as we are catapulted into the future now, remote working.
Exactly. So there's so many people now like ourselves here. We're doing this now normally as the last one, as you remember, we did it down in the studio.
Exactly.
So digitization is coming. So people need to get as much knowledge and open-minded as they can on anything there, because for this to happen, people are going to look at how they could have reduced the impact, and digitization, automation, etc., isn't going to be brought in just to replace people. It's going to be brought in to have better controls, better continuity and better options, and then realign people where the people can make the big difference. And people will always make a big difference. So to upskill yourself and to make yourself have a different thought process is so important. However, it's getting that mindset of how you prepare yourself every day. And for anybody, and again, I'm not trying to make things sound simpler, plan your day so that every day you do something at a certain time. And if that certain time, whether it's an hour, whether it's an hour and a half, whether it's 2 hours, is focused on upskilling yourself, then make sure you do that on that time all the time, so that you get into a disciplined routine. It's almost like a military a military way of thinking, because that will help you, it will help your family, it will help your partners, and it will also eat into some of the time, and it will make your mind think of something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you agree?
No, that's definitely, I think that's one of the best coping mechanisms, really, to have that sort of regime every day, so that you don't really have time to be down, but you're busy, you keep yourself busy and you keep yourself occupied with things that matter.
Yeah, and also I think companies as well, what they've got to start looking at, and not just the furlough, but they've got to start looking at what skills would they advise their employees to make sure that they maintain, so that when there is a surge, whether it's over the next 3 or 4 phases of the exit from the lockdown, or whether it's in 12 months or when there's a vaccine, so that people are ready to come back into the industry. Because what nobody wants is to lose all of the people that have been in this industry for so long and have had so many training courses and capability. They want them to come back. However, I do think when they do come back, employers are going to want people with a different mindset, because people themselves are going to have to be more agile and more receptive to ramp ups, shutdowns, agility pressures, change programs, etc. So I would be looking at filtering the types of training that would make a difference if you were in a one-to-one with a future employer or your existing employer, or an interview board, whereby you can say how you would approach a certain crisis and how you actually maintained your lifestyle, the pressures you were under during a lifestyle, because it's going to be the interaction of people that's also going to cause problems when they do get back to work. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's something that most companies will have to think of. Of course, the practicalities of how getting people back into work. I think when it comes to office-based stuff, might be simpler than really operational, ground-based sort of people who are where there's no alternative of working remotely or working from home. I think that's something that.
And I've had quite a few people contact me and say that they've definitely lost their jobs, or they know they're going to lose their jobs, and what should they focus on for any new opportunities that come up as and when. And I've told them the same: make sure that you keep doing certain things so that you don't fall out of that practice. Make sure that you upskill, but also have a look back on what you considered to have been the problems or things that could have been done better from your previous experience, and write them down and just look at them and think to yourself, how could they have been done better? What improvements? Because people will ask those questions of new candidates.
And Chris, the other thing I would mention is that the skill sets that you acquire in one industry, whether it's the aviation, aerospace industry, they can be applied in other sort of settings. And of course, if you're honest, I mean, what areas, what industries are hiring? It's going to be healthcare, pharma, consumer goods, anything e-commerce related, the Amazons and all that. No one is going to question you. Why did you take a job as an aerospace professional in April or May 2020 with an organization that is not with your industry? And I would also highlight that the role you take, whether it's interim role. I mean, obviously companies will increase the number of interim executives, because although they don't have certainty as to future requirements and how long this individual might be needed, but work still needs to be done. And how do you do that? By getting someone in for a short or a specific period of time. And I think as you mentioned previously, being agile and basically being open to other things that you've not thought about previously, part-time roles, side hustle, multiple anchor role. I mean, it's just a very different way of thinking that will be required about your own career and about how you go about your life, really.
100%, Arpad, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I also think that most employers outside of the aviation industry would be pleased to get people from the aviation industry, because even when they've gone on holidays or a business trip, they know how much focus and attention to detail and safety and security measures. So they know that people are able to follow correct process. They know what to do. They've been trained well. So it would be a bonus to have people from the aviation industry from all positions.
Exactly. It's about you sitting down, being honest with yourself, doing the self-review, and really identifying those skills that are transferable, and basically just go for it, because the hiring and looking for good people has not stopped. In fact, there are areas which I mentioned previously, which are really out there looking for people quite aggressively. It's about how you position yourself, how agile you are in your thinking.
Yeah, no, I agree, and again, I think from governments to trade representatives, organisations like IATA, all of those organisations and companies themselves, what they should be doing now is they should be realising that there is going to be quite a substantial fallout, and they should be helping people and giving them a sort of a safety net or a survival guide to teach them how to manage themselves in these particular situations, because it's a terrible thing and it happens to most people nowadays. And if you suddenly have something taken away from you because of nothing that you've done wrong, just because it's gone or whatever, it's a very, very tough situation to go through. And most people would reflect on themselves and say, it's not so much about them, it's about the people that rely on them. And that's what makes it even worse. And, lots of people will say, come on, don't worry about it, toughen up, everything. You can't say that to people, because everybody has to fall to their own level. And they're going to keep falling until they hit their own bottom. And when they hit their own bottom, it's then about how strongly they come back. And people should be aware of that particular fall, and they should be supported during the fall, but not to the point where they keep saying, come on, you can toughen. That's not what it's about. It's about supporting people so that they get the confidence to hit their bottom as early as possible and then bounce back and aim higher than where they were previously. And it's that guideline or that checklist that seems to be lacking, and nobody wants to put it together. And if people had that, I think it would make it a little bit easier for them. So it's a lot of it is about how you discipline your day, how you focus on the things that can make you better, stronger, of more value, how you're able to relate the values of what you're actually trying to do to the company that you're going to work for, etc. And you build yourself back up stronger. It's just like, when people have been ill or whatever, you start training again, you walk, you don't go on a marathon. You climb up a few stairs, you don't go up a full block of flats. Do you know what I'm saying? So you have to do things gradually, and then eventually you start to see the benefit. And even in this lockdown, my wife Kathy, she's had me walking every single day with the dogs.
Very important.
I've got to say, I feel so much better for it. But it's about what you do in those down times that are so important and so valuable to have somebody who will support you during that time.
Exactly.
Now,
but I would also add things like resetting your expectations. I think it's quite important to be realistic about what's happening at the moment. Really, not wanting to, get a huge promotion, not shunning a lateral move. If you have to move, then basically now that the labor market is so tight, you can't expect that you will be getting a higher title or more pay. I think it's better to be firmly grounded at the moment and really just
if it's raining and it's stormy outside, Arpad, go through the first door and get some shelter. Once you've got some shelter, you can see what's around you, and then you decide which door you go through from there. It's always easier to get something else from something of stability and less pressure. So I think you're right. Everybody has to be a lot more flexible now, and people should be encouraged to be more flexible and recognised and appreciated and respected, because you do what you have to do for yourself and your families.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing that I wanted to mention, Chris, is that there will be pockets within the industry that will be doing quite well out of this. I mean, many travel startups will be popping out left, right,
Yep.
center, trying to tackle some of aviation's biggest headaches, from baggage handling at airports to cabin design to reflect the
Yep.
new social distancing reality. I think smoother booking, better customer service. I think that's the sort of thinking that will be anything telecommunications related, Slack, Skype, Google Hangout, Zoom sort of companies. Basically, that's the 21st century thinking that will be necessary.
100% agree. And I looked at the Wizz Air advert, and it's very good. And what it does is it's like, you know, WMS, what makes sense. They've done everything that makes sense with regards to the turnaround of the aircraft, the way the staff are, how to take charges for anything that you purchase on board, the way you board, the way you disembark, everything. They've covered everything. Now, what that does is it's not a full-on solution, but what it does is it addresses this equation, this balance of consumers' fear and consumers' confidence. And if the consumer sees that somebody like Wizz Air is doing all of these things, it would make you more likely to assess your own risk and fly on them than somebody who you're not hearing anything about. And on the news this morning, they showed a production factory and how they've actually changed the flows in the factory to one way. They even put little, you know, when you wash your hands normally at a busy environment, where you wash your hands and then you have to open the handle to get out again. So it almost defeats the object. But what this company has done is they've put a little toe pull on the bottom of the door so you can pull it with your foot and open it with your elbow. And then what they've also done is, in most environments, you do have to at some point get closer to somebody. So what they've done on the factory floor is they've put a mobile unit, which is a screen that you can stand behind the screen and you can go up close and look at something and talk to somebody without breaking that. So people are very innovative and creative. So I agree with what you're saying. There is going to be pockets of businesses that are going to be looking for people. But the most important thing is people must be agile and they must be in the right mindset, which is tough.
That's for sure, and really just be quite unconventional in their thinking. Basically,
yeah. Now, getting back to yourself, Arpad. So obviously, from a legal perspective, and then into recruitment, you've seen so many people with different motivations for changing their career path and why, and you've seen pressures that people are under if they don't hit that employment that they want as quickly as they want, how that changes their character and their values and the way they're seen then by employers. So your motivation for getting involved in this is just genuinely to support from a social and a moral platform.
Exactly. I think it's when it comes to early career professionals, Chris, I think there's not enough support and resources available at universities, especially when it comes to specific aviation, aerospace related help. I think students, from my experience, don't really get the sort of career guidance that they would need. And that's what we are trying to do here, to really just fill that gap and provide them with some industry specific but also career specific advice, guidance. It's an opportunity for them to ask questions as well, really get in touch. The society has a very good dedicated team, by the way. It's called the Careers, Skills and Employability team, who is putting together really good programs every year, career festivals and career fairs here in London and all across the UK, really just getting engagement and promote the industry basically with school level kids, university level kids. So it's I think now is a time to add value and really just reach out and help. I think a lot of people need guidance at the moment, no matter their seniority, whether they're just out of school or have 30 or 40 years of experience in the industry. I think people will be having very similar sort of thoughts in their heads these days.
Yeah, no, it's admirable what you're doing, Arpad, and you're 100% right. And I think this new normal, there's also going to have to be a lot of focus on new leadership skills, because leaders are going to have to motivate people who are working from home, how to get the right balance. You've got to plug and play. You've got to bring those people in every so often so they feel part of a bigger team, but they appreciate the benefits or the opportunities to work from home. It's going to cut down commute time. It's going to help the environment. All the big story that you can put together. But you're right. It doesn't matter how long or how old you are. You need to be now retrained in this new environment.
Yeah.
But the saddest thing, I think, irrespective of this crisis, Arani, is when you see really good, enthusiastic, determined youngsters coming into any business and they're not treated with the care and attention and urgency and respect that they should. When you see them get a shock and it knocks them back so much, that's a terrible thing. So I think there needs to be a lot more awareness of what it's like in the real world, in the working world, for people who come from universities and schools, because they don't see the things that you're going to have to contend with, even though it's obvious, because it's the same as in private life. And I'm writing something at the moment, and one of the chapters I titled "Twits, Twats, Pricks and Prats."
Yeah.
And I think it speaks for itself what it's about. But when you see the types of people and how they deal with people coming in, that's what sometimes loses great people from businesses and industries, because they just get such a shock, they don't like it, they don't want to be associated with it, and they'll go somewhere else. And that's so wrong, because you're then...
And that's really important, Chris, what you just said now, because especially with early careers people, because that first experience will determine if they stay in the industry or if they leave. I mean, aviation's competition, the competition here is not industry or sector stakeholders, not like if someone leaves Airbus, will go to Airbus. It's basically, there are many other alternatives out there, Chris, but in the tech world, where an engineer can get a job. So even if you studied aerospace engineering, it will be quite welcome in other sectors that you might not even be aware that someone with that sort of skill set will be required.
Yep, 100%. And I always tell people, I used to bring on loads and loads of interns when I was with Lufthansa.
Yeah.
And I think people thought, they were probably questioning why, but I learned so much from those youngsters, the way they came in, and obviously with a modern and a newer way of thinking, I probably learned more from them than they learned from me.
Yeah.
But what I always used to tell them is it's far better to work for a good manager than a great company, because a good manager will encourage you, he will share things with you, and he'll want you to do better than he or she ever did, because of the fact that they know what can happen if you get that early sponsorship or mentoring or coaching, how quickly or how it can escalate your career and get the benefits from. And good leaders are people who inspire people and make people want to do more, and are also happy to see that the people they've inspired are doing greater things than themselves. And that's something that unfortunately the human race is not so good at, because there's too much envy and you know, they want what other people have, and it's such a shame. And I think if you can get youngsters, like I said, be positive about failing early but learning quicker, and encouraging them to do so, it's such a great thing, because they go home, they're inspired, it has a ripple on effect with all of their family and their friends, and they just learn to adapt, and then they will have a bigger impact on people who come with them or people who are there. And again, we're talking about older generation. There's nothing wrong with how old you are, what colour you are, what religion you are, what sex you are. It's irrespective. If you're the best for a job, you should be given the job, and nothing should be holding people back. And the more people now learn how to interact in times of crisis and pressure, the better value they'll be to a company. And companies need to realise that and not allow, like I said, twits, twats, pricks and prats to influence people and treat them badly, because we'll lose them as an industry, we'll lose them from our companies, and we'll lose them as colleagues.
Exactly.
So that's critical.
Yeah.
Now, we've covered about the roller coaster on the job search. One of the points that you mentioned is about, what people's expectations, but I think you've also covered that. When there are so many people losing jobs, it's not best of times to be bargaining for a salary increase or a higher salary.
No.
The most important thing is focus on what you want. Make sure you're enhancing your own skills, and if you get an opportunity from any company in the environment we're in, make sure you take it and respect that company and give the best, because whatever you're doing at your best will help you for whatever you really want to do in the future.
Exactly. I think, and also I would add, really creating a compelling narrative, basically understanding what you provide to the employer. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all businesses of one, and we need to be able to sell ourselves, basically, or our services to organizations. And I think something that I also wanted to mention is really the importance of building your network now, whether it's formal networking groups or mentorship programs, building really that personal cabinet of advisors, Chris, I think, which can be extremely valuable in helping you navigate your career. And basically this pay it forward and help your network sort of attitude is probably the right one now. You have to be incredibly sensitive these days, because you never know how the other person has been affected or impacted by this. So I think visibility is crucial.
Yeah, no, 100%. You've hit everything there, and the most important thing is, it's like ingredients for a fantastic cake or a meal. It's easy to see the list, but it's the sequence that you put them and how you mix them all together that gives you the end result.
Yeah.
And there's no real secret to how you do that. You have to get in there, do it, learn from it, and the most important thing as well is, whatever you're doing, and I know this sounds silly, enjoy it, because there are 2 days we can't influence. You can't influence yesterday, change. You can't change yesterday, and you can't change tomorrow, but you can influence today. And if you influence today, then tomorrow has always got a chance of being better. And so I think, getting back to how we started, anybody that's got these particular pressures and challenges, they need to find somebody who's positive to talk to, positive to support them, positive to give them guidance, positive to help them. And then as a result of that, some of that positivity will rub off, and it'll make you feel better yourself, and then it makes you do better. And I think what you're doing, and the reason you've come on, Arpad, is makes a lot of sense. I said to you at your first one, it's pretty obvious your career change is one where you're actually helping people change their lives, and you enjoy it. And I know personally, because I know somebody who got in touch with you after the podcast, they said how caring you were, and that's one of the most important words that people are using these days, and respecting. Anybody who cares is a really, really valuable asset. So I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. I think we are really trying to make a difference, basically, to people's life. It doesn't really matter what sort of stage of their career they're in. You can't 100% recession-proof your income or your career, but there are ways to really just be ahead of the curve and really just expect the sometimes unexpected things.
Yeah. And like you said, if you fail to plan to fail. And it's important in every walk of life to make yourself little lists, give yourself recognition, and show that you've achieved something yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back to show that you can do something. And like I said, sometimes the most difficult thing when things are not good is how to fill your time. Yeah. And get the right direction. Now, we're almost at the end. And there was something that somebody sent to me. It was a motivational exercise, and it was from an Admiral McRaven, who was he was a Navy SEAL in the States. And basically what he was doing is he was saying that when recruits go in, they don't understand why certain things they have to do are relevant and how they help you in life. And obviously the survival rate from when people go in to the end of the course is very low. I think it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 only make it. But he came up with 10 points. So feel free, jump in on any of these, but I'm going to just go through them. And I think it covers a lot of the things that we've spoken about today. So the first one is always start the day with a task completed. And what he was talking about in his training was why they, in the military, they make you make your own bed every single day you get out of it. And they make you make it to a precision that's nobody else can ever compete with. And the reason was, no matter how bad that day then is, you get into a bed that's made. So basically, if you've done a task and you've completed it, that day is a success.
Yeah.
The second one was find someone to help you through life. And obviously we would transfer the word life to challenges. Find somebody with a positive attitude who can help you, steer you, guide you, who genuinely wants to help you. Genuinely wants to help you. The third one is respect everyone, because at the end of the day, everybody's different. And what we've covered today is that, you know, in this crisis, you never know what's affecting somebody else. So you have to be careful how you approach them, what you say to them, and what you demand or expect from them. The fourth point was life is not always fair. And it doesn't matter whether that's in work, whether it's life itself. And, you know, you just look at the poor casualties in this particular crisis. If this damn crisis hadn't have happened, you know, they've still got days ahead of them and they're still enjoying things. So it's not fair. But when that fairness, you know, you experience that it's not fair, you still have to move forward and you mustn't dwell on it. You've got to keep stepping forward. The fifth one is don't be afraid to fail often.
Yeah.
But the most important message is, however, learn faster. So don't be afraid to fail, but quickly learn and then don't do that again.
Yeah.
The sixth one is you have to take some risks. You have to, but ensure that they are balanced or assessed. The seventh point is step up when times are toughest and be brave. And sometimes in furlough, redundancy, whatever, that's also when you have to be tough and be brave. To just accept it, move on and try and learn from it and get something else. Then the one that can be taken in many ways, it's face down the bullies. And the term bully can be in many forms. So it can be with bad management, it can be with unnecessary pressure from colleagues, it can be with unnecessary pressures from your friends or whatever. If that's happening and it's uncomfortable, change it. Don't put up with it. And then the ninth one is lift up the downtrodden. So help others. And an acronym for help is how everyone likes or loves people. At the end of the day, you have to like or love people. So you need to give them help. And then the last one, never give up. Never give up. Never accept the negative situation out of everything. There'll always be somebody there to help you. And if you always feel that you can change today, but you can't change yesterday or tomorrow.
Exactly. I think there are some great points there, Chris. I think some are easier said than done. I think
exactly.
It's when push comes to shove, I think some of those things that you really highlighted there, the ability to really reinvent yourself, dust yourself off, and really just believe that tomorrow is going to be better. I think that's easier in the theory when you're having to do that really in real life. I think that's
hugely, and I think you're 100% right. All it is just a list to reflect on. But the one thing that always does happen with people is there will always be somebody there to help you, but they might not be found where you would expect to find them. And a lot with friends, family, etc. Sometimes they're people that you spend your time with, but somebody that really helps you can come from a very, very unexpected part of your life. And it's just opening your arms, embracing it, and just try and keep one step forward, inch by inch. Any given Sunday, Al Pacino, inch by inch, everybody wins.
Yeah, especially when you're going through something like a job search or career, like a career change. Basically, you need to have someone who is not your friend or who is not a family member, but someone who can give you that much needed emotional support and can really stay neutral. So whether it's really a career coach or a job search group, work group, doesn't really who, but someone who can really back you up.
Yeah, and normally it's because those people have had a similar experience and they're talking from that experience and they know the pain and the suffering and the challenges that the individuals are going through. That's very, very difficult times for everybody. And, please God, things will get much better for everybody. And the one thing that we should be encouraging is if you get the chance to help someone, do so. If you think somebody needs help, ask them if they do. And if somebody comes to you, don't turn your back on them and try and help everybody.
Completely agreed. And if any of the listeners have time or would have an interest in joining the webinar, which again will be predominantly for people with experience in the sector who are having to make difficult decisions or who are having to go through any of the things that we talked about, whether it's furlough or job loss, then come and join us. It's going to be at 3 p.m. on the 20th of May. Again, it's organized jointly by the Royal Aeronautical Society's career and employability team. And the aim is really to add value and basically just make a difference to people's lives.
Arpad, I applaud you, my friend. Got a lot of respect for what you're doing. Really appreciate for coming with the particular subject matter, because so many people need support now and help. And wishing you great success for the webinar, everything else that you're doing. And again, I like the beard. I've seen you in a different light now. So well done, my friend. And
thank you again, Chris. Thank you for the opportunity to come back.
It's our pleasure, Arpad. Good luck. All the best.